Oh, okay. I guess that's a thing now. So for those of you who aren't already aware, yes, at long last, the Hive team has finally decided to revamp one of their more popular game modes from their Java Edition server after 414 days of it being closed. But who's counting, am I right? And funny enough, despite the fact that there are hundreds of people in our community who have sat idly by waiting for the next suitable replacement for Block Party ever since the Hive closed its doors, and before anyone says anything, yes, we tried Hypixel, and no, it did not work out, I was seemingly the first person to figure out that the good folks over at Bedrock Hive have unknowingly answered our prayers with their own release of Block Party. And while the details are at a minimal and the release date may be around a month or two away, this news is definitely a breath of fresh air, and many of us are anxious to get our hands onto the game mode that gave me and so many countless others joy, friendships, and happiness. The prospect of an incredibly popular server hosting it is definitely something that we really want to see. And just as much, we hope to see that this new version of Block Party can capture all the values its predecessor had, which is definitely not a small task, which is why I am making this video, in hopes that I can compile my thoughts together on some of the things I would like to see actualized while it's still in the works. Now before I start, I would like to add that while I may be very experienced with Java, I am not very experienced with Bedrock. This community that I am introducing myself into, I have no experience with, so the direction they might be taking Block Party may be different than I was expecting. Furthermore, I am not speaking on behalf of anyone but myself, and the things I say should not be taken as absolute truth or a demand of any sort. So with all that out of the way, how about we hop into the first thing I'd really like to see: leaderboard support. Obviously, Block Party will be in the arcade lobby instead of the main lobby, meaning defaultly it either isn't going to receive leaderboard support or it isn't intended to have one. But I believe that a leaderboard will definitely go a long way of satisfying the more competitive players who play the game, as well as visualize their dedication to it. From the looks of it, the only leaderboard the Bedrock Edition has is based on months instead of all time, which I'm not really sure what to think about that. Obviously, it is something, but nothing permanent, which I'm not too big a fan of. Pacing is another thing I really hope they do well, and in order to best get my point across, allow me to visualize a game of Block Party for you. First, you have the pre-lobby phase, where people are joining. Depending on the lobby size, it would be nice if less than half the lobby size limit could be reached before the countdown phase. This I am a little worried about because in general, it seems like the lobby requirements are pretty high before the countdown begins, but once again, it is a big server, so this shouldn't be too big a problem. Even if the Hive team decides to never touch the game after 8 months of it being released, all the while desperately needing an update to push it into relevancy, to which they never do, leaving you to wonder why they ever released the game in the first place. And while we're on the topic, the lobby wait time before the game starts is currently set at 20 seconds, which I have no problems with. Hypixel. After that, you are thrown into the game where you are given some time to move around the map. This phase can be used to navigate to more ideal areas of certain maps depending on the amount of understanding you have with a certain map's mechanics, and this phase is arguably the most important phase during the actual game itself. If you give people too little time to move around, it makes reaching the ideal spots on each map much more rushed and challenging. Make this phase too long and you kill the pacing. With that said, I'd love to see this value be around 3 seconds. Just keep in mind that the bigger the map size, the more time you should give the players before a color gets picked. After that, you get the color selection phase, where the game picks a color and you have to find that color before time runs out, and all colors aside from the selected color disappears, leaving you to politely fall to your doom. This phase starts off more leniently at around 6 seconds and, over the course of 25 rounds, goes all the way down to half a second. You might think that having less time to react is a bad thing, which it is, but it's also the most exciting part of the game. Being able to make it all the way to the finale and make clutch jumps as the world disappears all around you as you watch your rivals fall one by one, well, that's thrilling and by no stretch should be taken for granted, nor should it be considered as a bad thing at all. If anything, you want to design a system where you can get to this phase more often than not. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Generally speaking, keeping this phase across 25 rounds limited to 69 to 80 seconds would be preferable. And last but not least, you have the void phase, where the colors disappear and an allotted time is given to make sure everyone has their chance to fall. This phase should not take that long. Like seriously, 3 seconds max, maybe even 2.5. And so, with pacing addressed, next up is the actual maps themselves, and what I'd like to see from them. Firstly, for those who are unaware of Block Party terminology, every round gives you a certain amount of time to react to the game's selected color. If you have half a second to react, that is called speed 12. If you have 1 second, it's called speed 11. and so on. It's important to understand these topics when considering how to design your maps, and that's without taking symmetry or overall map complexity as factors. In short, maps that are any lower than speed 9, really speed 10, are highly discouraged due to one simple problem those maps generate: luck factors. Take this map as an example. It's on Hypixel and it's a 64 by 64. This is quite literally the worst map in the history of Block Party. This abomination has terrible color spread and is speed 8 viable only. In the absolute best case scenario, you can only reach 5 colors on speed 12. I for one am of the firm belief that if you cannot reach at least all but 2 colors on a map's highest speed, then it should not exist. Hypixel never made an attempt of adding more maps to offset the ones that didn't meet the requirements, and I am here to tell you that at least 1 in every 6 maps on Hypixel are like this, adding a frankly unacceptable level of luck as you progress through the game. On top of that, another problem Hypixel suffers from is its lack of asymmetry. Literally all but 1 map on Hypixel is symmetrical, exponentially decreasing the skill ceiling of each map since you can survive from literally anywhere. Hypixel's version of Block Party should basically be known as the don'ts of how to make a Block Party game. Being able to troubleshoot a map and figure out where the best spots are is the single best way to reward players for taking the time to study and learn. Thus, I believe that it should be highly prioritized. Another thing I am not so much wanting, more so worried about, is the overall skill ceiling of this new Block Party. To make a long story short, a lot of things go into a given skill ceiling. Map comprehension, movement mechanics, heck, even the number of maps the game even has, with more being better. Game state awareness, and most important of them all, precise and quick turns and jumps to get yourself from point A to point B while maximizing what little time you have to do so. Let's focus on that last one for now, and we'll start that segment with a few questions, if you'll indulge me for a bit. Given that this game is Bedrock Minecraft, meaning less PCs and more consoles, aka controllers, question 1. Which group do you think will have the easier time completing jumps? If you answered keyboard and mouse, you'd be correct. Question 2. Which group is in the majority here, PCs or consoles? If you answered console, you would probably be correct. Honestly, I don't know the exact ratio here, but I can for a fact say that it is definitely not an 80-20 thing. It's closer than that. Right? Question 3. With the keyboard and mouse being in the unverified minority, which system would you rather design your game around? A system that simplifies movement and turns to cater to the console players while not making it any harder for keyboard players, putting everyone on a more level playing field, or a system that, while keeping some maps easy, also has maps that have specific colors surrounding a 360-degree radius of the player, all the while making the best spots on each map be more spaced out, requiring better movement mechanics and timing, something the keyboard does really well at, but not so much with the controller. You see the problem here? Because I do. I am worried that the skill ceiling, similar to that of Hypixel, will be as high as a baby stroller, whereas the skill ceiling of the Hive's Block Party was more like a standard house, and the ceiling of Random Craft being a cathedral. Now, I will say this. Obviously, the number of players Hive has is staggering, but the same was true on Hypixel's version, 4 to 5 times the size in fact, and we all know how that turned out. It couldn't even go half a year before drowning in its own irrelevancy. So please, don't be the baby stroller. Be the cathedral. If you want some numbers to work with, it'd be nice if around 35 to 40% of all maps were asymmetrical, less than 5% of maps were speed 9 or lower, if any, around 10% or lower were at speed 10, 40 to 50% were at speed 11, and finally 40 to 60% were at speed 12. It's important to not have every map you play be speed 12 viable since it lowers the skill ceiling of each map, making you only ever have to learn one spot. Make it a speed 11 map with only one color you can't reach on speed 12, and now you reward the players who know each spot, and you make each map more expansive. Even if you hide the best spots, which is way easier to do if the map is asymmetrical by the way, you reward the players who know the spots. Block Party shouldn't be a game anyone can just master overnight. It's a journey, and a fun one at that, and it is a shame that it has been in the state it is currently. I hope that this video gets some of my opinions out there and that the worst of the storm is behind us. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you there when the game does eventually get released. Thanks, and have a great day. Later, peoples!